How's it going, guys? Shape here, and welcome to the channel. This video is going to cover some tips I have for new gold makers. These tips are something that I wish I had had before I had started farming gold, and hope these will be helpful to you as well. They are just going to be my honest opinion on what I think you should do when you start farming gold, so these could be things you are already doing or haven't even thought about yet. So with that said, let's hop into it and find out what those tips are. Be sure to turn on your notifications, make sure you have that bell rung, and drop a like so you don't miss any of my future content. If you have any questions, drop a comment or tweet at me. The first tip I'm going to go over is for new gold makers to understand that they need to know their market. Every farm may not be the best farm for you depending on your server, class, or many other different reasons. The internet is full of guides and videos on the best gold farms and what people are doing to make all of this gold. A lot of gold making depends on the servers you play on and if you're dealing with the auction house or not. The farms that everyone are talking about online probably isn't the farm you want to be focusing on at that current point if it has to do with the auction house. That is just a cold hard fact, because if you're watching that video, then thousands of others are as well. Now, this isn't to say you can't make gold with these farms, but you're going to have to stay on top of your auction house prices to deal with the market, and it will most likely not be as easy as just posting your items and getting tons of gold from that. These farms will eventually lose their popularity when everyone is doing them, so I always suggest going back and checking old methods to see if that is the case. To go into this a little farther, it is important to find out when you are selling the most items on the auction house, when you have the most difficulty selling those auctions, and what auctions give you those problems. Once you can determine all of these, then you will know when you need to post the items, when you need to avoid posting the items, and what items may not be worth your time to farm if others are selling better. No matter what server you are on, the economy on that server is most likely going to be different than another server. Also, it is going to be important to set a minimum to what you are going to take for your items. If the market dips below your minimums because of undercutting, more than likely once the materials have been cleared out of the auction house, the price will reset. In my experience, this can happen as frequently as every couple days to every couple weeks. For instance, a few months ago when dredged leather was selling for a good amount of gold, people would still crash the market and sell them for next to nothing. Once all those items were bought, the market reset and everything went back to normal in a few days. I didn't panic because I was sitting on thousands and thousands of dredged leather, because I knew that the auction house would reset itself in a few days because I knew my market. I put them in my bank and frequently checked on the market, and once I saw it had been corrected, that is when you post. Don't try to be greedy with this, because others will be doing this too, so just post yours at the normal rate or maybe a little higher to see if you can get any bites, and more times than not you won't have any problem selling your items. This is why it is really important to know your market. Another tip I'm going to go over is for new gold makers to expand the materials or items they are farming. This is a huge downfall I see a lot of gold farmers making, and it could be easily fixed. I have answered the question plenty of times on past videos with my items aren't selling and I'm not making any gold off of them. The case is usually that they are flooding the market with a whole day's worth of materials and expect to sell it instantly. On top of that, once they post the items, they are heading right back over to the exact same farm and do it over again. Not only are you most likely not going to sell all of your items from the first farm, but now you're going to have even more of a surplus from the next farm. This is not to say you have to be doing different types of farms in terms of mining, herbing, skinning, and so forth. You could be doing all skinning farms if you want to, but don't just have 100,000 gold worth of materials on the auction house for one item and expect it to sell instantly. This will cause a huge headache in the end because your server is only going to sell a certain amount of each item per day. This ties back into the first tip I provided with knowing your market and the sales rate of the items. To find out the sales rate of the items, I would recommend you have the TSM add-on. I usually don't recommend too many add-ons, but this one will save you a ton of time in the end because it will point you in the right direction on what items sell the fastest on your server. Now take these rates with a grain of salt, because I don't think they are 100% accurate all the time, but it will give you a good ballpark number to go off of. With all that being said, you want to diversify your farms. A good way to do this is to go into different expansion farms on different days of the week so that you will have a variety of materials on the auction house. This alone will give you a better chance of selling your items because you will have such more variety. This will also make it so you don't feel like you have to dump your surplus of materials because you think you are just wasting them if they sit in your bank or bags. Believe me, I have sat on items for an extended period of times, but I have eventually sold them. If I have trouble selling an item, then I just go to do a different farm until they sell. Unless there is a farm that is currently selling as soon as I put it on the auction house and I can't farm fast enough to keep up with the demand, I usually don't do the same farm twice in a row. With diversifying your farms, this will help you achieve your goals faster and prevent you from burning out of doing the same farm over and over again. The next tip I'm going to go over is for new gold makers not to overcomplicate the gold farms they're doing. A really big problem for new gold makers is they want to do all of the farms that are making people the most gold. This will have them doing material farms, battle pet farms, mount farms, transmog farms, raw gold farms, and the list goes on and on. While it is great to diversify your farms, it isn't great to be in too many different markets when you are just starting out. Just sticking with the different skinning farms per se will leave you better off in the end. The first tip I went over was to know your market, and someone that is just starting out, there's no way you're going to be able to keep up with all the different markets. I have talked to a lot of people about this for a long time now, and they are on the Undermined journal studying all the different prices, trying to make some sense of it all. I am sure some have figured out a way to sell everything early on, but at the end of the day that is going to burn you out so quick because the markets change quickly on all of these different methods. And what happens when the markets change quickly? You have to change your methods, and if you have to change multiple methods at the same time, you're going to be spending so much time looking at data that may just not be worth it in the end. This probably turns a lot of players away from trying to make gold because they think it is too hard to understand, because they give this farm or that farm a couple of hours worth, then throw it in the auction house and check back tomorrow to find out that it didn't sell. They then complain about the farm isn't worth it, try the next farm they found that is supposed to be good, and try that farm for a few hours and end up doing this over and over again and say nothing is working for them. If you guys decide to focus on a transmog farm, then I hate to tell you, but your couple hundred auctions aren't going to sell at a consistent rate. It took me a long time in the beginning to understand this, because I thought, hey, I have like 400 items on the auction house, something is definitely going to sell, right? Well, to be honest, most likely not. To a player in the transmog game, you have to be selling thousands and thousands of items at any given time to see a steady flow of gold come from this. That is why overcomplicating the farms you are doing can be a real disaster if you're newer to gold farming. Another tip I'm going to go over for new gold makers is to have a bank character. This character's sole purpose is to be parked at a major city and will be the character doing all of your auction house posting. This way you don't have to waste time on your main character going back and forth to the auction house to post your items. It might be a small thing, but depending on how many materials or items you are putting on the auction house, it will end up saving you a ton of time. If you have the long boy, then you probably aren't a new gold maker and wouldn't be watching this video anyway, but if you are, then it is still important that you have a bank character. This will mainly be to focus on the inventory space, because your main character will probably have other items filling up their inventory and you don't have enough room to hold everything. You will also not have to log on to multiple characters to check if your auctions have sold, or if you have to repost those items, it will all be on the same character. The bank character is just to make your life easier and to have everything in one place and to save you time in the long run so you can get back to farming faster. Now, another reason to have a bank character is just not to use your inventory space, but the space of a guild bank as well. This can come into a bigger play when you are stockpiling items for the next expansion, which is about to begin or has already begun for a lot of players. I find this very helpful and usually create different material tabs, mount tabs, battle pet tabs, and so on and so forth. Again, if everything is in one place, you have a good understanding of what you have available and what you need to farm more of to keep your inventory up. This is something I wish I had known when I started farming gold, because I would just do everything on my main character and go back and forth all the time. My last tip I'm going to go over is for new gold makers to have set goals in mind before you start any of your farms. I want to get the long boy isn't really a good goal to have. It should be something like, this week I want to focus on farming X, Y, and Z and make a profit of X. While you can make this weekly goal line up with farming enough for the long boy, it will give you something to shoot for that is a little more obtainable. The same thing goes to if you are farming enough to gold just to pay for your monthly sub fee. You will need around 115 to 120,000 gold on most US servers from what I have seen, so it's really an easy goal to set. You have 4 weeks to farm that 115,000 to 120,000 gold, so divide that by 4 and set some of the farms that give you around the amount of gold for the time you have to invest. The same goals apply if you are a transmog collector as well. I think the biggest reason a lot of players complain about not being able to make gold, or it's just too time consuming to make gold, is the fact that they don't have any of these goals set in mind and they just look at the end result. I know I personally do this, and I never really get burnt out on any of the gold farms because I have set goals in mind and I know how long some of them will take. Of course, people will always say just pay for it with real money and buy tokens. That may not be an option for everyone, and I don't know about you guys, but I would never spend real money for something I can obtain in game even if it takes some time. At the end of the day, you have to realize that millions of gold cost hundreds of dollars for a reason. It's not meant to be obtained in the blink of an eye. Well, there you have it guys, my tips for new gold makers. I hope you guys enjoyed, and don't forget to let me know any other tips you have for new gold makers. Please drop a like if you enjoyed the video to show some love for the channel, and I'll catch you guys next time.